This year I had a real block trying to figure out what to talk about tonight. Jen and I often process this throughout the year and really think what would be helpful. Where are we at as a community? What's going to be beneficial to hear? And, quite frankly, I was just in my head. And so I was going through previous talks that I had done, wondering if I should build off anything. And I came across a statement that I'd written in my notes probably a couple of years back, maybe even 3. And it was a statement, it was this: what it takes to start a movement is what you must use to sustain that movement. For example, right now we know what a movement driven by hate looks like. We know what a movement started by fear looks like. But that means you have to use hate and fear to sustain that movement. And then I began to reflect on Awaken. And Awaken is a movement rooted in love. And it is love that we will use to sustain this movement. And it is love that motivates this community to be safe and to be the change. After that reminder, I went from my head to my heart, and that felt right. And so tonight is really just an extension of what my heart wants to share, not my head. And so the warrior and the fierce one that you're used to seeing, I'm not here to do battle tonight. I just want to share you. What my heart is saying is I am filled with gratitude. I'm filled with gratitude for the Banquet team that puts this together, this beautiful night, this beautiful event. I'm filled with gratitude for this community. I'm filled with gratitude for the Awaken team, our staff, our interns, our volunteers, our mentors. But can I be transparent with you? What is overflowing my heart with gratitude, and this part of my process in this movement, is towards survivors. I have met survivors that just put me in awe with their courage and their tenacity to speak up. I have watched them take on harmful legislation nationally. I don't know if you know this, but Washington, D.C. just recently tried to fully decriminalize, meaning legal to buy sex, legal to traffic girls, legal to purchase, the whole thing, in Washington, D.C., in our nation's capital. I watched survivors that had been exploited in Nevada. They wrote a letter. 55 survivors that had been exploited in Nevada signed that letter and said, no, this legislation will only would only cause more victims, more women and children to be exploited. I've been privileged to watch survivors take on harmful legislation in our own state and advocate against the legal sex trade in Nevada. These women have spoken up about the violence they endured in legal brothels and in our state. They've shared about the stories of their pimps and how they love to come to Nevada because the laws have done half the work for them. This makes Nevada easy to recruit girls from because we're so desensitized. Because they share that with us, we get to know these things. Some, in fact, 6 survivors have even come back and joined the Awaken team and are on Awaken staff. In order to make a difference in what seems insurmountable, survivors have publicly opened up, as Annika just did, publicly opened up about the most vulnerable periods of time in their life to perfect strangers. They're willing to do this again and again to help us understand the complexities of this often misunderstood issue. So many people still to this day are unaware of the harms around prostitution. Over and over again, these survivors share their experiences only to often face public ridicule and mocking. They hear suggestions and comments saying prostitution is empowering. They hear that it's a woman's choice. They hear that, well, it's always going to be around, that men have an entitlement to us. Imagine sharing the most vulnerable and traumatizing part of your life, and then that's what's the response in our state. Here's where I want us to pause. I just used a statement that I want to reflect. Imagine sharing the most vulnerable and traumatizing part of your life. When I say that, if your brain is anything like mine, when you hear me say that, you're going to fill in the narrative of what I mean. You're going to create a story of what's not being said. And it's more than likely you're going to create the scenario that I'm talking about the abuse and the trauma between the trafficker and the woman, or the sex buyers and that woman. There's one really important missing piece in that narrative. Where were we? Where were the systems and the people and the foster homes and the law enforcement officials, the educators, the authority figures meant to protect them? You see, it's easy to fill in that scenario and point the finger at the obvious predator. But if we contemplate on this, it's the silence on our part that contributes to the vulnerability that leads to their exploitation. And yet we are the ones survivors are coming back to share their story. It's us in this room. It's the people in positions of influence. It's the people in positions of power. It's the people in positions of change. Because survivors came back to those of us who have been silent, that new voices are joining this fight. Voices like mine. Voices like so many other people in this room. But if they didn't first take the risk to share with us their lived out experiences, we would never have known how to respond. These women and their courage, they absolutely humble me, and I am forever changed because of them. Hearing the stories of survivors, it has driven me to dream bigger. It has driven me to believe for more and to dig in until we see the fruition of those dreams. The women in the Awaken house and in our program, man, they have shown me that no matter what you endure, you can laugh again. It's possible to heal. And most importantly, they've taught me that love always wins. So when they encounter any type of block or barrier to keep from accessing additional services or help, they have taught me that one person is absolutely worth going the extra mile for. It's one thing to create a program to help with healing. It's an entirely different thing to create an atmosphere and a culture and a community to see people live to their fullest potential. So this year, we are really thrilled to go into 2020 with tonight's assistance with you guys to increase the opportunities that we have built for the program for the house and have it be available and accessible to so many more women to then have opportunities to live to their fullest potentials, to dream dreams again and see them actualized. The youth we work with, they are some of the liveliest kids you would ever meet. They have taught me that the status quo will not work. They have motivated me to never remain stagnant in life or work. And I assure you, they are worth changing our entire system for. Which is why we will create a new healing, holistic educational opportunity hosted at Awaken Center. They do not deserve our silence. They deserve our absolute best. And I also do hope you will consider truly looking in to see if you should become a foster family for them. So there's one person here whose healing path has paralleled our community's attempt to break the silence. I first met Molly many years ago. It was a friend of hers and a survivor that we had worked with that referred her to Awaken. Molly came many years ago to get some help. She, like many other women and children, had endured things that would break most anyone else in this room. Working with Molly the first couple of years, at times it caused me to wonder if it really is possible to heal from that kind of trauma and abuse that goes back into such early childhood years. It exposed my lack of faith. Here's the thing, if you know me, my faith is huge. That should give you an idea of the things that Molly and the abuse that she had survived. And again, when I say abuse, I want to pause and contemplate. And remember, our silence contributed to the things that kept her vulnerable, because we were the people that are supposed to keep them safe. I recall talking to Molly one morning, actually, after she had had a really restless night, plagued by nightmares from the trauma. And Molly, in the midst of it, reaches into her soul and says, I have a vision. She says, I want to use my voice one day. I want to use my story to bring change and to help others. In the midst of reliving trauma, she taps into a dream and a hope, and she learns to create meaning out of her suffering. Over the years, Molly, she was really pressed into her healing. And while she was doing that, the community was breaking its silence. Edon, they brought change, physical change. They changed the taxi toppers, which once plagued our city with just advertisements of the sex trade. The airport, they refused to put up signage advertising the brothels. Jill Tolles increased penalties against sex buyers in Nevada. City Council evaluated the regulations of the strip clubs. That opportunity, again, coupled with this collective support that began to shift in our community and our culture, created an opportunity for Molly and other survivors to use their voice and provide testimony of about the things that they had endured in the strip clubs. It gave an opportunity to have a voice, to break her silence, to be heard. Also, Lyon County had a ballot initiative deciding whether or not they might want to have legal prostitution continue to exist in their county. That gave Molly and other survivors an opportunity to share again about the harms that incurred to them in illegal sex trade by making a video, sharing of the things that had happened to them, as well as the harms that have incurred in Nevada because of the legal sex trade. So multiple survivors, again, because we have the conversation, have been given opportunity to share. You see, while they do this, they still face opposition and threats. While we do this, we still face opposition and threats. However, this community is still continuing to break its silence so that we're also getting support now. People showed up to city council meetings advocating for change. People signed petitions. People educated. They talked about it. They created conversations. And as Molly broke her silence, so did the community. And as the community broke our silence, so did Molly. Over the years, our community has become safer for survivors to speak up. And Molly has grown stronger. She now has 2 amazing children. She's an incredible mom. And she started her own jewelry making business, which I am totally gonna plug. It's called Made for More, and you need to go buy out the rest of it tonight. Like seriously, there better not be one piece of jewelry left this night. Also this year, just a few months ago, not that long ago actually, Molly reached a place in her healing where she took another step into that vision. For the first time at an awareness event in Lake Tahoe, Molly publicly shared her story. It is in addition to the work Molly has done on her healing. In addition to that, it is this community that is standing up saying, I believe survivors. And not saying all of the things of the opposition and all of the things that are misunderstood that they have to hear and endure after they share. It is the support. And the community isn't just saying, we believe survivors. They're not just empty words. You guys are stepping in with actions. It is because survivors have been willing to face us, the silent ones, that Awaken now exists. It is because of their stories that laws continue to improve, that enforcement gets more tactical, better funded, that multidisciplinary teams get formed, that survivor records get vacated and sealed, schools get trained, airports become safe, hospitals learn what the signs are to look for, and victims are identified, and people become more compassionate. Women who have survived prostitution are some of the most inspiring humans I have ever met. Events like this, they're not just about changing their lives, they're about changing ours. In addition to silence, one of the greatest threats to the issue of combating human trafficking is assuming somebody else is going to solve this problem. The vision has never been that Awaken will be the solution. It has always been a safe city. We together, collectively, listening to survivors, hearing them, believing them, leading it to action. That is a community that is a safe city, that has broken its silence. The projects we have for 2020, the holistic school where they can heal and learn and have a future they can believe in. The additional opportunities for more women to access programming services, the specialized foster homes, These are the things that we're asking you to partner with us on tonight for a $5 million, I heard, goal. Whew. Now we got applause. So I'm gonna ask you tonight to dig in. Not just break your silence, but literally break open your wallets. That is not a joke. If you're hesitant to break open yours, break open your neighbors. They're more generous than you, so make sure you remember that. Take it all. We have a $250,000 goal tonight that will change their lives and ours. I assure you, we cannot do this without you. The community board back there is evidence of that. It is evidence of what happens when a community comes together to create change. Over 160 women and children this year had an opportunity that would not exist without you, and we would not exist without the survivors that took the risk to tell us, the silent ones, that were meant to be there to help them and protect them in vulnerable times, that then led to the exploitation. We all need each other in this, and it is vital that we come together to do this because we can. And we know we can because we already are. So tonight, we ask you to give. Tomorrow, I ask you to then ask yourself, what other areas of silence need broken that you can then step into to then have another place on that board? Because as a city, we have to do it together. And we have to be willing to really go the extra mile, because I assure you, it costs more to do nothing than it does to give tonight, and then it does to give what needs to be broken tomorrow. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you for being a part of our community.
I think it's important.